Hey, welcome to Half the Battle.
Today, we'll be taking a look at somebody who's the highest ranked Navy guy in G.I. Joe, as well as having the biggest vehicle in G.I. Joe history. Yeah, this is sort of a follow-up to last week's episode where I briefly talked about him. So meet Admiral Keel-Haul. This figure was released in 1985 with all original body parts.
And it's an impressive figure.
Yeah, in 85, G.I. Joe really hit their stride when it came to detailing and paint applications, and this guy is a great example of that. There are no less than 7 colors on this toy, and you'd think that many would make him look like a clown, but no, they all work together. The maroon jacket goes with the beige pants, while the hat and blue shirt make him look like a sailor.
The detailing is amazing.
What with the gold on his head, chest, and not one but 2 belt buckles, multiple because why not, and the insignia on his arm. Hell, there's an 8 color on the guy, as I just noticed the silver dog tags on his chest. They really went all out with Keel-Haul, even though there really was no reason to.
I'd even go as far as to say that there was no reason for this figure to be made at all.
Yeah, in case you didn't know, Keel-Haul was a vehicle driver, though the term driver isn't totally accurate, as he came with the frickin' USS flag. And an Admiral really doesn't drive that ship. He's got people to do that. My point is, the flag really didn't need a figure to sell it. Hasbro released their biggest G.I. Joe toy ever. Hell, the biggest action figure playset ever made. That's the selling point.
So I have to praise Hasbro just this once. Man, now I feel dirty.
But praise is due for them going the extra mile and including a pretty awesome figure with it. Now, considering Keel-Haul only came with the aircraft carrier, that would have made him one of the rarest figures ever, at least on par with Payload and Hardtop from the Defiant set.
And for a time, he was.
But Hasbro, sensing there was more money to be had, re-released him as a mail-in figure in 1989. Not just in the US, but also in Europe. And as I discussed last time, this was the only way to get him here, since the flag was never released in Belgium.
Have I mentioned how much I'm not bitter about that?
Anyway, the figure even came with an accessory, not counting the aircraft carrier. A pistol that was a silver version, a version 2 Hawks gun. For completeness' sake, there were some small variations of the Keel-Haul figure, with the insignia being absent on some, as well as the gold color on the stars on his collar sometimes being unpainted.
But I don't consider that very important.
Overall, yeah, pretty great figure. No corners were cut. I'm impressed.
Hasbro wasn't quite done with Keel-Haul yet though, as he got a second figure.
So meet Keel-Haul version 2. This figure was released in 1993 with no original body parts. Yeah, it's a straight up repaint of version 1. And in my opinion, in worse colors. It's still not a bad looking figure, mind you, it just doesn't compare to the original. It's also a lot less detailed, with one exception we'll get to in a bit.
This baffles me.
8 years of advancement in action figure painting. 8 years, and here we get less of it. The hat just has a black glob of paint on it, there's no insignia or paint on his stars either. The only added detail is a huge logo on his back. And yes, there is a variation with a smaller logo, calm down.
His accessories aren't worth mentioning, so I won't. Well, not much anyway.
Yeah, this was a 1993 Battle Corps figure, remember, so he came with a generic weaponry and the unavoidable missile launcher.
Bleh.
And those were the only 2 toys Keel-Haul ever got. Well, to be more accurate, there was a Collectors Club exclusive figure in 2014 using the modern body construction, if you want to count that. I don't have it, so I can't really comment on it. The first one is the best, but version 2 isn't too bad either.
With that, it's time to talk about the character, starting with the file card.
The first and biggest thing you see is the rank, Admiral. That's probably why his rank isn't part of the information directly below. His real name is Everett Colby, and as I mentioned last week, in the Benelux, he was just Admiral Colby, no codename. The text of the card dates him a bit, as it mentions him flying Phantom F4s in the 60s.
Even using the most generous calculations, that would make him at minimum 72 today.
Anyway, he's a pilot, which is unusual since admirals usually come from ship captains, so good for him. He was so good he could land a damaged plane onto a carrier at night, which is like trying to jump on a moving skateboard while blindfolded. He's also a high-level chess player, military historian, and the world's worst clarinet player.
Hey, that's just a mean thing to put in there.
I can understand why they made him a pilot too. That way, kids might not just stick him on the bridge of the flag, but actually have him do stuff like jump into a sky striker if the need arose.
Pretty clever.
The second file card clarifies that he's a 3-star Vice Admiral, and the body of the text regales us with an adventure. During a Cobra attack on the flag, there were no more pilots available, so he, being a pilot himself, jumped into a Ghost Striker X-16 and took care of business himself and saved the day. This explains the patch on the back of his jacket, which says Ghost Strikers. Yeah, I think they made him an honorary member of that group after the events described on the card.
As far as other media go,
well, Keel-Haul did not appear in the cartoon. The USS Flag sure as hell did, but when it had a commander, it was Beardy McBeardface here for some reason. Yes, I know his name is Admiral Ledger. This is pure speculation on my part, but maybe they didn't want to name Keel-Haul in the cartoon.
Because it's a pretty gruesome punishment.
In the comics, well, the Flag first shows up in issue 40, but the only guy we see who might be in charge doesn't look like Keel-Haul. He does finally appear in issue 73 and a few issues after that. This was the Cobra Civil War story arc, where the Flag serves as a command and control center for the G.I.Joe forces involved in the conflict. He does have a few lines, but he is stuck on the carrier, with the focus being the action on Cobra Island itself. His last appearance is in issue 115.
And it's here that we learn an interesting little tidbit.
To the glee of Hawk, it turns out that even though the General is in overall command of the Joe team, when they're on the Flag, Keel-Haul has command and is fully in charge. And that was Keel-Haul. Honestly, it's pretty impressive he left a mark on G.I. Joe history on his own, considering the set he was part of. I mean, the Flag is itself so iconic. The character may not have been necessary, but I'm glad he was part of the Joe team anyway.
Next time, it'll be a brand new month. May, in fact. And you know what that means? Main character May. Well, I'll see you next time, everybody. And hey, why not like, share, and subscribe if that's your thing.